Thank you so much for talking with toofab today. We are big fans of I Know What You Did Last Summer, horror movies in general, and the fact that you have this new podcast that was pretty scary. It's just a perfect fit, and I'm yeah excited to have other people listen to it because the first episode is out now and it's great.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. People can listen to it on Amazon Plus, or they can listen to it wherever they get podcasts a week later. I wish they all came out at the same time, but that's just the way this business works. But I promise you, you're going to get around an hour every single week, and all I do is talk about movies I love. There's no trashing or bashing, or why would you talk about something you don't like? I've never
Right.
understood podcasts that do that. I think that's a joke. It's not worthy of your time. It's not worthy of any sort of respect in any way, shape, or form. So it's me and my dear friend John Lee Brody, and we talk about every horror movie we've ever seen. And it's a lot of we'll be doing these a lot of episodes to say that.
Someone like me, I love this movie. I've seen it probably too many times. I dressed up as Helen for Halloween one year.
Did you
Like,
really? Did you
yes.
do chopped up hair or did you do the good
Oh
hair?
yeah. Short hair with the tiara. I wasn't pretty, but I did it.
Oh, that's
But it's
great.
wild for me just to think that, for so many of us in my generation, this was a movie that we watched a lot. And you, star of the movie, hadn't watched it until you recorded this podcast. Was it just the bad experience that maybe
No,
outweighed the curiosity to see how it turned out? Or,
no, I don't like say this interview right here. I have tape, or what's not tape, it's a post-it where my face is. I don't want to see my face. I hate my
got
face.
it.
I don't like the way I look. I don't think I'm a good looking dude. I don't like looking at my face at all. I don't like the sound of my voice. I think I sound stupid. So I don't want to do that either. It's very rare that I do my own voice in a voiceover job, because I just don't want to hear that. So that's the main
Mm,
reason. I mean, I've only seen 3 movies that I've done total. 4
oh,
now,
really?
because John made me watch I Know What You Did. And probably for our season 2 premiere, we'll do I Still Know What You Did. And I haven't seen that. So that'll be another unique experience. But yeah, no, it wasn't because it was a difficult job. It wasn't because of the weird things that went on that. It wasn't because of the good things that went on that, the bad things that went on that. It's just one of those things. I know other people who are like this. They just, I believe I'm a qualified good actor, but that doesn't mean I want to watch what I'm doing. I'd rather
I
watch I'd rather watch Ray Fiennes in The Menu.
I understand that because, yeah, I will not want to watch this back to log myself talking to you. So I get
Okay, cool.
it.
We're on the same page, man. And people may go, well, that's weird, or, oh, it's this, it's that. You're right. It is. But it doesn't change the fact that it's my life.
And now I've listened to the first episode. I don't want to obviously give everything away. We want people to go listen.
You give some stuff away. It's about an hour long, man. You can't give everything.
Yeah, right. I was gonna say you share some stories from the set, just how some of it was frustrating. Well,
Yeah.
I'll leave the boat story for you to tell in the podcast. We'll send people to the podcast to hear that.
My near-death experience. Sure.
Yeah. But I think it sounds like you and the director just weren't on the same page from day one. It sounded like he wanted someone else, and it just kind of
Yeah, it's more the
went
latter.
from there.
Yeah, it's not that we weren't on the same page. I knew what the correct choices were for the Ray character. He
Yeah.
wanted a different actor, a really good actor named Jeremy Sisto, who I know and I like and respect very, very much. And the studio, Mandalay, and one producer in particular, and most importantly, Kevin Williamson, wanted me for Ray because one of the major differences between Jeremy and I now, because I feel like I'm as good an actor as Jeremy is now. Back then, I was not. I'd seen Jeremy's work. He had more experience than me. He knew
Yeah.
how to apply it more. So I could acknowledge that he was the superior actor at that moment in our careers. But he has this edge to him that I didn't have. And it makes you think he could be a bad dude. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And that kind of, I felt, gave away a lot in that last scene with Ray on the boat where he's like, come aboard, come inside. I felt like it, in hindsight, that it was, too much of a giveaway. Whereas I was sweet boy Freddie, he would never hurt a fly. And that seemed to be a more attractive red herring to Kevin and Stokely, the producer I know, who have my back. But yeah, the director, I'll give him this. I'll give the man this. I think his name was Jim.
Yep, Jim Gillespie.
He made no bones about it. Like, there was no passive aggressiveness, which I hate. He was very direct in the fact that I don't want you in this movie. So when that's your first job,
yeah,
you hear those words, it just wrecks you, man. It just wrecks you. And if I didn't have Sarah there, we weren't dating then, we were just becoming friends. And if I didn't have Ryan there, and Ryan and I aren't friends, but Ryan and I were colleagues. I mean, I don't have his number. We don't text. I'm sure if we saw each other, we would give each other a huge hug and catch up, but we weren't friends. We were work associates. We went to the same gym. They paid for us to work out, so we were in better shape for the movie. So guys bond in that manner, because we would run side by side. So even when we got to North Carolina, he would say, "Hey man, do you want to go for our run?" And we would run like 2 to 5 miles every single day. And it was like a real spiritual thing, man, you know, because you're young guys. And so he wants to test me and see if I can hang at his pace. And then I'm like, oh yeah, let's see if you can hang at this, you know. So we're challenging each other, not being jerks, just to get the most out of one another. And I felt we really applied that same energy in the scenes we had together. So when I did have those moments where the director would just give me psychotic notes, like, don't leave your mouth open. You look stupid when you do that. That was the exact note, word for word. I'll never forget it. And I'm like, I'm either going to break down or I have to beat this guy's ass. Like, those are the only two options in my head. I was raised by Bob freaking Wall. That's the guy that trained Bruce Lee when Bruce came to America. That's the man that taught me how to fight and not get bullied. And in my head, I'm like, what would Bob say? What would Bob say? You're only in control of two things, Freddie: your actions and your reactions to the actions of other people's actions, your reactions to other people's actions. And I'm sitting there just like a mantra, saying it again and again and again, and it's not working. I remember Ryan came up to me and he said, "Screw that guy, man. Like, how many times did you audition for this movie?" And I think it was like 5 or 6 times.
Right.
And so I go, 5 times. He goes, yeah. He goes, you earned it. He was like, you didn't get offered the role. You earned it. He's like, there were less people every single time you went, and then it was just you. Remember what booked you this role. Screw his notes. Any note he gives you, just say, okay, and then do what you want to do. And he was the first person to say that to me. You know, Sarah was much more sensitive about it, whereas Ryan was like, fuck him. Like, you know what I mean? But they had both been in the business so much longer than me. This was my first studio movie. Before that, I only done a tiny independent called The House of Yes, with the kindest director ever, Mark Waters, who did Mean Girls. His brother did Heathers, which is one of my favorite movies ever.
So good.
So, well, his brother wrote it. Lyman directed it. But yeah, so it's weird to wake up a lot of people relate to this because a lot of people have jobs they don't like. It was very difficult waking up in the morning or in the afternoon, because we shot a lot of nights, and go to work with the right attitude. Because I knew the moment we got on set for rehearsal, I was either going to be Mr. Pay No Mind, which would be where he would give everyone notes before we shot anything and before we rehearsed, except me. He made it a point to single me out every time, would bring the other actors together without me and give them all notes. And I'm like, a part of me is like, well, is he just trying to like do some method crap? Like, I don't understand.
Mind games.
Yeah. And then he started talking to me and he was just so disrespectful that I was like, nah, this guy just didn't want me in the movie. And then he said, I don't want you in the movie, basically. So it was
validated.
So it was hard, man. There was a part of me, and the boat story is the big thing. And I almost quit the movie. I almost caught a flight and went home. I was just done. I had had enough. They had broken a ton of union stuff that they shouldn't have done, like union rules and all kinds of things. And I just felt like, yo, if I'm not wanted here, screw it. Like, there's other things I can do. I dropped out of Cordon Bleu to make this movie. I'll go be a chef. That's what my mom wanted me to be anyway.
I was gonna say, was it like such an experience that you were I was done with acting?
I packed my bags. I packed my bags that night.
But not just this film, but like film in general.
I was gonna just quit the business. And then one of the other producers was really nice guy. His name was Eric Feig. He just said, you can't leave. Please, you got to finish what you start, man. Please. We only had like 3 weeks to go. And so I listened to what he said, and I don't, there's a wrestling term that says go into business for yourself, right? Which is where you go off script and kind of in a live audience, talk all the trash you want, say how great you are, and the other person doesn't know where you're going, and you just make them like shit, right? So I don't want to go into business for myself. I don't want to leave Ryan and Sarah like on the wire like that, because they were really good to me. The first AD was really good to me. This guy named Louis DiGiamo, who every time Jim would say something, he would always put an arm around me. He'd be like, Marlon Brando would tell that guy to go fuck himself, so don't worry. And he was the first AD on the freshman, so he knew more. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go tell him to go fucking. He's like, no, don't do that. I'm just saying internally, you gotta let that go. But I wanted to fight the guy like 2 or 3 different times. Once I felt was a legitimate reason, and the other 2 I was just pissed off, which that's not right. And I was glad that everybody talked me down. But I mean, in hindsight, I'm not upset. In hindsight, I love it because the movie launched my whole career, and I wouldn't have any of the things I have without that movie. I wouldn't have my wife, wouldn't have all the other movies that I've done. I wouldn't have this podcast. We wouldn't be doing this interview. Like I'm here because of that struggle and because of that pain. And it was those things. It was a struggle to finish work every day. I was in pain every single day on that movie. However, it prepared me for this business in a way. It sounds weird to say this, but I'm forever grateful to Jim for being such an asshole, because I've never met one like that since. Like I've met some directors that I don't get along with, but none of them would ever think that crossing those lines would be okay, right? So I've been prepared for every lesser a-hole in this business. And I'm sure he's a hero in someone else's story. You know what I mean? I'm sure he helped somebody else out and they loved him. But for me, he took a lot of frustration out on me. He was a first-time director. He didn't have a lot of time. He didn't have the budget he wanted. He didn't have the actor he wanted. And he didn't know how to deal with that frustration. He wasn't able to create outside his own box. And you're going to take that frustration out on somebody. And I just happened to be the target. I'm not trying to say like, oh, it was cool. It sucked. Trust me. I was, but like when I did the second one, it was the exact opposite experience. Like all of a sudden,
different director
who was so like just ready to rock every single day. His name's Danny Cannon. I would run through a friggin' wall for that guy on that movie. Any note he gave me, even if I didn't agree with it, I'd be like, dude, you'll see, just watch, Danny. And he's this really cool British guy. He directed a bunch of Bjork music videos back in the day. He ended up being like the main not the showrunner, but like the main director on CSI, right? Like one of the CSI executive producer. It's a super successful guy, hyper talented, tough to work for, right? Like he'll get on an ass, but he never asked, or I shouldn't say asked because Danny's a demander. He never demanded anything from anyone that he wouldn't demand from himself. So he walked the walk, right? Like you saw how dedicated he was, so you better be as dedicated as he is. And I respect that, man. Like I said, I would have ran through a wall for that dude. So it ended up being a beautiful experience at the end because I got the exact opposite side of the coin, so to speak. But yeah, man, I was 21 years old on I Know What You Did Last Summer. I did not know a thing about a thing. Like I knew I liked girls, cheeseburgers, and that's about it. Like those were the things I was certain of, but everything else I was still learning on the fly. So there were challenges, there were things I allowed to affect my performance. So when I watched it, there were a couple scenes where I was like, dang it. And I remembered right away, I was like, the way I wanted to do it was better. I shouldn't have done that. You know, there are a couple of little scenes in there. So it was the hardest job that I've ever done. And I'm just glad I got it out of the way that early.
And you mentioned watching it back. I know you and Sarah both said you watched it together. She came in while you were watching. She came in.
It was so surreal, man. She hadn't seen it since the premiere.
She hadn't either.
I walked the premiere line and then left and went to this place called Jerry's Deli and went bowling with my friends. I didn't watch the movie.
A great choice.
She saw the movie. She hadn't seen it in 20 plus years. So we all sat down together. She came in like as the credits started and she was like, there's no way I Know What You Did. I was like, there's no way you would know. Like, how did you know? She goes, I remember that shot. And so she came and she sat right next to me, and we got to watch the whole thing. It was such a crazy, cool experience.
And I know your daughter's still, I think she's 13, 14. She's young. Has she expressed interest in seeing it yet? Because it's not as violent, obviously, as movies are now. I know you said you brought her to see Megan, which isn't, I feel like it's
Not
almost
scary.
on par.
Yeah. I don't want her to see her mom die.
Fair.
But that's the only reason I haven't shown it to her. My son's only 9, but he doesn't get scared of anything. Like, he could watch it tomorrow and be like, Mom, that looks so cool when he killed you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he watches anime. He sees far more violence than we brought to the table in the 90s. But no, she hasn't seen that one. She doesn't enjoy getting scared.
Okay.
Very nervous to go to Megan. Very, very nervous. I had to kind of let her know what kind of a horror movie it was. And yeah, you know what I mean? It's like it's chopping mall. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes.
You don't go and chopping mall. You go, robot blew up that girl's head.
Killbots.
Yeah, man. So Killbots, that's right. Protectors 1, 2, and 3. You saw chopping mall. That's amazing.
I've seen every movie I think you're covering. I got the list. So
did you?
I will be listening.
They gave you. We put a few extras in there, but yeah, man. So she wasn't a big horror fan, but my son saw the original Terminator when he was 7.
Okay.
And he's cheering for the Terminator.
No, I think my mom actually had to bring us to see this movie, and she enjoyed it.
Oh, that's
came out in theaters.
Yeah, James Wan came around and turned it into a comedy because his movies were so scary. But that happens to all horror movies, you know. It's like it evolves so much quicker than every other type of movie Hollywood makes, because all these directors are trying to outdo each other. And so and so Sam did this. Well, I'm going to do this. Like Wes Craven and Sam would like knock each other in their own movies. If you watch Scream, they're like, "Hey, you want to watch?" It's one of his movies, and they're like, "Nah, I don't watch that crap." And they do it to each other. You know, they're always trying to one up and challenge. Comedy can last forever. If you watch Trading Places today, it's just as funny as it was in 84, 87, whenever it came out. Whereas when you watch I Know What You Did, it's more like, you know, you're not as scared as you would have been.
All right, Freddie. Well, I'm going to leave you with this picture of me. Oh,
wait, it got blurry. I see. Oh my God. Is that you in the mirror doing the pose?
On the bottom, Sarah's on the top.
Oh my God.
Oh,
that's hysterical.
And
that's
my boyfriend as the fisherman. So bad.
Did you reenact the murder?
Oh yeah, I had to do the whole scene, running in my smallest heels I could possibly wear.
You break your ass.
Not as skilled as Sarah. Not as skilled as your
bro, man. My favorite thing about that scene is it's the first time the Helen character, what was her last name? Shivers? Helen Shivers. Helen Shivers.
Or Rivers. It was one. One's in the book. It was one. Shivers in the book and Rivers in the movie. Maybe.
Yeah. The first brave decision she makes when she decides to fight back, and you're like, holy crap, here she goes. And then she's punished for it with death. And I thought that was such a great, like, Hitchcockian horror move. Like, you finally became the woman you're meant to be. Here's your prize.
Death. I know. It's the one everyone wishes she would have made it out, but we wouldn't be talking about it still if she had, I think. That's
a great scene. The music, the fireworks, the hope, all of it. Just beautiful. And you can see, I don't hate the director. I think the scenes he did were beautiful. He hated me. It was not a two-way street. It was a one-way street. I came to the table with respect and hunger and ambition, and he came to the table with a different menu.
Well, like I said, big fan of this film. I'm happy you have an appreciation for it, despite what may have happened on set. But and I'm very excited to hear the rest of this season and of your podcast, because
thanks, man.
It is very much my jam.
I definitely enjoy talking about movies I'm not in more than the ones I am in. So fortunately, we got a lot of those to cover.
I am looking forward to it. Thank you again for all your time.
Appreciate your time, man. Thanks for the opportunity.